Hello, everyone. It's Alicia here.
And I'm Justine, and together we are Womanufacturing. Hello, people. So this topic is something that I went through kind of personally a few years back. And it's when you uproot for a job, when you physically move, and therefore make a literal and emotional transitional state for yourself. And it's something that I struggled with when I was going through it. And now I'm currently unemployed and I'm looking for work. And sometimes work isn't where you already are. And you have to be considerate of making career movements and literally moving for work. And so as I reconsider this as an opportunity for myself, it just got me thinking back to about 3 years ago when I moved, um, and how that was actually really hard for me. And I'm bringing up the subject in part because, Alicia, you've moved quite a bit, and you've
All the
been
times.
very career focused. And I think it would be helpful for me and maybe for listeners to acknowledge, like, how you approach it and if it's like actual tactics or if it's really just like a mental configuration for you, like how it works out for you too. So
Yeah, no, I think it's a great topic because in general, I mean, there are people that are focused on, I'm going to live in my hometown and I'm going to find work, even if it's not the work that I necessarily want there because I want to stay there. That's where my family is.
Mhm.
But for me, it was always, I got to go where the job is. And I don't know what instilled that in my head because I was one of the first that left my family. Out of the whole family, all the cousins and everybody, I was the first that kind of left, but it was always just like, I got to go where the job is. And I'm very career focused, maybe too much. And that's something I'm working on with in therapy.
Mhm.
I put all my eggs in that basket. But yeah, I mean, you have to go where the job is sometimes if you're looking for something specific or you're trying to grow your career. And it's something that you need to figure out how to deal with. So yeah, I mean, I would love to hear a little bit more about your transition, Justine, when you moved more recently, and then we can talk through kind of coping mechanisms and things that helped me on all of my moves.
Yeah. And I mean, some people also end up moving the first time they move away from home. Well, some people don't live in the same place for a long time, so they're less rooted. But the background on me is that I grew up in a small college town. Um, and I lived like in the same home the entire cognitive existence that I have, right? So I'm just a kind of wired to be a little more rooted. And so I ended up going to college in that town as well. I looked at other colleges and realized that monetarily and like emotionally, I just kind of actually wanted to stay in my hometown, which I love. And so the first time I moved was when I got a job out of college. And I actually moved during COVID, which at first I had some reservations on, but ultimately, because um, I moved to Reno, which isn't a spot that a lot of people plan to live in. They don't go
Right.
there intentionally. They just kind of show up there because of job opportunity and growth opportunity. So it was very ripe with people who were new and looking for community. So that move was actually pretty easy. And I think it was easy for several reasons. One, with COVID, you tend to like get a group of people that you feel comfortable with and you hunker down with them, which like builds a lot of community right away, which I think is
Yeah.
a huge help. And then two, it happened to be in a city that's a fast growth city that had just a lot of people there who were willing to make new connections, which is a huge help. There's some colder cities, literal temperature wise, but also just like not just climate, but like vibe.
People, yeah.
Like you hear
Freeze.
about like the Seattle freeze. Yeah. Where I literally have talked with people who are like, I can't crack into a friend group here. And
Yeah.
people who grew up there are like, what do you mean? I have friends. It's like, yeah, but you know them from forever, right? It
Yep.
wasn't easy to just crack into it. Reno was not the case. And then the last thing on it was that I was working at a job that really commanded my whole being. So not only did I work with kick-ass people who were most of my friends, but I also was super distracted. I didn't have a lot of time to sit there and pick at myself or wallow because so much of my time and energy was going into this job or in rebounding from this job, either through partying or through like working out or getting outside to try and like have some semblance of balance. So when you're distracted enough and in a fast growth area, I think moving's not really that challenging.
Yeah.
Has that been kind of your experience as well, or?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And basically generally have made friends at work. And then that definitely helps.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you have a job that actually needs you and you feel a sense of tie to them. Like I know that they might call me and need some help, or my schedule's really busy. It doesn't give you time to really worry too much. And then if you enjoy your coworkers, it's helpful. So like my
Yeah.
first job out of school was I moved to Texas, and it was they were growing. It was like a greenfield cheese manufacturing plant, and they brought in a bunch of people from other places. So there was a bunch of us that were all fresh out of college, and so that was like my instant friendship community. And two of those people, they're married now and are my best friends to this day. I'm going to visit them in Singapore in November. So I
Wow.
mean, that it was incredible because I just had that built in. Everybody was there, new, looking for friends. We had the shared experience of this greenfield cheese plant. None of us knew what the hell we were doing. We were all fresh out
Mhm.
of school, and we were being forced to like start up these cheese lines, that sort of thing. So I mean, that was what the biggest thing was for creating community for me. And then when I moved back to Seattle when my niece was born, it was a hell of a time to make friends, and I was from
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So, because I was kind of at a job where I was the only engineer at the company, and so I didn't so my choices were to hang out with, uh, the other leaders in the company that were, like, way older than me, or the
Right.
people on the floor. So, a lot of times I would hang out with people on the floor, but I would get told not to because I'm in a leadership position.
Yeah. And
So,
that's
yeah,
kind
it's
of
not always easy.
complicated because usually the people that I enjoy at a company are the folks on the floor because they're very real and like you end up talking about things that are interesting and dynamic and not like, oh, what do you do for the weekend? Like
Yeah.
it's not so like professional. But that is also a risk. If you are a position of authority over somebody that you're trying to be friends with, then you get like conflict of interest pretty quickly. So it's like, although it's a little taboo to discuss, it's like there's always a bit of a disconnect between the hourly and the salary people because there's
Mhm.
at least a perceived sense of like power position where you're like, well, I can't get too close because I should be unbiased, like emotionally, when trying to make certain challenging decisions. Like, is this person the right person to still be working on the floor or not? Um, but so, I mean, that makes sense, right? So, in the first instance, you were surrounded by people similar in age and similar in life trajectory. Because I think
Yeah.
even for interpersonal relationships, it doesn't really matter as much of who that person is. That does matter ultimately, but where you're at in life. Like, if
Yeah.
somebody is like popping out babies and having like their focus on the important things, like shifts dramatically
Yep.
versus if you're all 20 somethings out of college, you're rolling out of college where you had a lot of friends and intermittent free time, which allowed you to build community pretty quickly. And that's why there's kind of an inflated sense of like how easy it is to make friends because you're all literally at the same time point of your lives.
Yeah.
So you have a lot you can connect on. But when you go out into the wild, if you're one of only two 20 somethings in a professional environment and the other 20 something sucks, then you're
Yep.
not going to hang out with them. And
Yep.
like you can connect with really rad 40-year-olds, but their problems are just different than yours. And
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And you're
it
not
is
gonna
valid.
necessarily go hang out outside of work. They've got a partner, and you're not gonna go third wheel in it with, this cool maintenance manager and his wife or whatever. It's
Right.
just different.
Unless
you
they're
can have.
super cool, you can make those connections,
Oh,
but it's just
100%.
like it's less effortless. Like
Yeah.
it requires more energy.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, in my 20s, I mean, I'm stubborn still, but back then I was like, "Nobody tells me what to do. If you tell me I can't hang out with the maintenance guy or the operator, screw you, I'm gonna do it anyway." And
Sure.
so I totally did, and it kinda bit me, to be very
Mm,
honest. I
mhm.
It held me back. Leaders were like, "Oh, I don't think that's a good call." I got in the middle of random shit because somebody was immature and, pulled me into drama, and I mean, I regretted all of it. So word to the wise, like, when they say that it's not to control you, it is actually because there are reasons, like you said, the whole leadership perception, the biases, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, do what you want, but if your plan is to be looked at as a leader and grow and all of that, like, I would advise being careful in some of those situations. And I'm not talking about being shitty to the hourly people. And
No,
I'm not
no.
talking about not go, if you get invited to an outing, go ahead, but you just have to be careful and you can't get too close and all of that kind of stuff, which is challenging. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I fell in the trap and I thought it was stupid. And then I realized why.
No, I really appreciate you saying that because I felt very similarly, right? In my first couple of experiences where very real people are on the floor, and I'm so drawn to a genuine person. And but if there is disputes or drama, or even if the person is just very open and they kind of pull you into their interpersonal drama or their
Mhm.
own, you just end up getting kind of almost too close because you're
Yep.
like, "Oh, I know that this person's having a tumultuous, like, family experience." So if they have an outburst on the floor, you're kind of like, "No, but they're just going through a lot." But, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of not up to you professionally or interpersonally to advocate for them and how they behave, right? Because, like, yeah, people have shit experiences and they handle it one way or another. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just like not your responsibility. And
Yep.
it's really hard to shield yourself when you end up do caring about a person. So it's important to listen to people and actually hear them and understand them. But there needs to be a little bit of protecting your own interpersonal information and protecting your own um, emotional support for people when like ultimately you can't control their actions and decisions, and it also shouldn't be a reason to hold you back professionally because you're a bleeding heart, you know.
Yep.
And I still haven't learned that very well, but it is a thing. It's a thing to know, and it's a thing to keep in mind. And it sounds callous to just say like, well, you know, they have a job to do, and if they can't do it then they get removed or demoted
Yeah.
or whatever, but it is for the best interest of you and your company and the way
Yeah.
that you run your production to be open to people, but not so porous that they really seep into you.
Yeah, you need to lead with empathy. That's very important. And people are going to go through tough times, but you can't let emotions lead decisions and all of those sorts of things.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
Um, yeah.
But yeah, I
Though
mean, I was just gonna say, I definitely had more challenges moving. Like I said, back up to Seattle was one instance where I didn't have that built-in group of people to hang out with, and so then and maybe you don't have. I was at a job that maybe wasn't as thrilling or took as much of my time as I would like, and I always
mm,
get really weird in those situations and have to come up with 1,000 hobbies. I've started blogs. I've started book clubs. I've started all of these different things. But one of the things that helped me most was basically meetup groups.
mm,
And
mhm.
it's like nerve wracking for somebody with anxiety to go on this like big date with like 10 other women to
Wait, so
go.
is meetup like a thing? Is that like a group or like a company, or is
It's a
it
website, and I
okay,
don't
cool.
know if it's still there, but usually somebody pays a little bit of money to like start a meetup group and then maybe
Mhm.
they charge their members. But so I mean, I've done this everywhere I've gone is join a meetup group. You go and it might just be like women in our 20s, it might be reading, it might be crafting, whatever. You
Yeah.
join you go, meet 10 random women at a restaurant or something. And then you figure out, you go a few times and you start to figure out who you like and who you don't. And
Mhm.
then you can easily just kind of like spin out of the group and join and make friends. So I have 3 women in Idaho that I'm still best friends with. I joined a mama's group actually because I was married at the time and had a stepdaughter or whatever. And I met these wonderful women and I still talk to them to this day. So I mean, that's the one thing that I can give solid advice about is go find that community because you're not just going to go to a bar and make friends.
Right, right. Yeah, there is the idea that there's a random chance and you'll overlap, but like it's not it's not nearly as easy. And yeah, I've heard even like certain dating apps you can set to friends, but that's a little squishy.
Yeah.
Facebook, if you're using Facebook, there's Facebook groups. So there's just like ways of just trying. And I do like your advice of like if you're new to space, just put out those feelers. You may get really lucky and you may love your coworkers and your coworkers become your friend group, but there is a lot to be said about branching out in a community. Um, Volunteer work is also something that's cool, but a lot of
Oh yeah.
volunteers are like, retirees. And I do like hang out with older folks. I think that they're hilarious and very quick and clever, and they help give me trajectory for later years.
Yep.
People who know themselves really well, once again, feeding back into like being genuine. But a volunteer group is cool because you're not only doing a good thing, because even if everyone around you's annoying or shitty, you still did a good thing that day. So you
Yeah.
don't feel like it was a waste of time.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
It's good on your
Um,
resume too.
Looks great on a resume.
Yeah, no,
Um,
the
yeah.
the volunteer groups is such a good one, and I definitely use that tactic as well. And it wasn't just to meet friends; it was like this is a volunteer group for STEM,
Mhm,
so
mhm,
it
mhm.
fell in line with my passions. And then I did like Big Brother Big Sister, and that was cool because there's group outings where you go with your littles, and that was another way to meet friends. So yeah, lots of good opportunities out there. I even met a girl on Craigslist. It When I was in my 20s, Craigslist was still a legit thing to like make connections. So we
Mhm.
met, yeah, it was a friend. We met up at a corn concert in
Hell
Washington
yeah.
and became friends from there. And we'd go to this weekly bar bingo every Thursday. We'd start at her house, we'd play a little game, and then we'd go out and go to bar bingo. So, I mean, you
That's
just got to get
awesome.
creative and put yourself out there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a more introverted person, it is harder. But if you're an introverted person who's feeling like they're missing a bit of social connection, then it's a matter of pushing yourself, doing one of the things, not the 7 things we just listed, right? And find what
Yeah.
works for you. And if you're an extroverted person like I am, you end up getting so stir crazy that you kind of force yourself into those situations anyways, or you just start like yammering at people at the farmers market and they're like, you need more friends.
But I love that about you. I mean, you are dynamic and can go into any group and make friends. And I mean, I can too. Let me be honest.
Yeah, no, you've always been so easy to talk to, and I try and get away from it because I'm like, oh, if you're 20 something, you just hang out with 20 something year olds. But it's like, but we have an age gap, and that's never mattered
Yep.
because you're just a rad person.
Yeah.
And that feeds back into like some of my favorite people to chat with are in their 60s and 70s, and they're just like kick-ass people. And I've been able to overlap with them, and they're always so tickled when I get to actually spend time with them. So like the age gap isn't really a thing either. But
Yeah. And I was definitely in when I was in my 20s hanging out with people in their 40s. I mean,
yeah,
it's just a yeah, it's a connection thing, it's an energy thing. It doesn't matter what the age is. And like you
for
said,
sure.
a lot of it has to do with where people are at in their life and whether they have space for relationships outside of their immediate family, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I was also curious. You kind of mentioned idle hands a minute ago, and I know part of the toughness for you when you transitioned back to your hometown was going from really just like a high demand situation and you didn't have idle hands to going and living like normal people live without
Yeah.
all that crazy
Yeah.
stress. So what was that like and kind of how did you tackle that? Because I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah. So when I first moved back, there were several things. So first, I left my previous role kind of under duress, not because anyone pushed me out, but because I had let the company seep so much into my life that I um, wasn't doing as well as I felt like I should, just like personally. Um, and I so I left the company that I was at, which is like a very fast growth, very cool company that I believe in today. I still believe in. And I moved to a company that is super cool and I had been looking at for years. But it was just a slower pace. And so when I was so focused on getting all my stuff together and moving myself from one state back to another, and I was going through finding a house and like reconnecting with people and this, that, and the other. And when I finally picked up the huge root ball and planted it somewhere else, and I finally let the dust settle, I had a lot of like, did I just really screw up? Right. I had a lot of worry that I made a rash decision, even though it felt like the right thing. There was other circumstances. My family was going through some things that was good for me to be nearby.
Mhm.
And I felt really powerless when I couldn't be near family, just being so far away comparatively. So it was good being back in my home state, but it was also like, did I just really blow an opportunity because I got overwhelmed? And like,
Right.
am I just like a quitter? And I had some of
Oh,
those thoughts, right? And that's hard to think through because trajectories are so curious, right? Especially when you're younger. Um, it doesn't feel like a major branch, but it does ultimately make a lot of decisions of your trajectory and where you end up and what you're doing. It was it was kind of funny. So when I started my work at the next company, um, I was so used to certain gung ho hours that like I would show up there at 7 and work a full day and more, and other people, rolled in later in the day and left earlier in the day, and they were looking at me and they're like, you don't, you don't have to do that, right?
we hate you. No.
And they did, and they never said it like you're making us look bad. They're saying it genuinely from the like nobody's asking you to do that.
Yeah.
Like there's always going to be more work, and at that time the plant wasn't 24/7 either, so like
Mhm.
it was good to overlap with like first shift, second shift, but it wasn't such a dramatic hourly shift that like you had to work that much. And I also came to the realization that like whether I came in at 7 or 9 or 10, I would leave at like 6, 7, or 8 p.m. anyways. So I just
Yeah.
stopped coming in that early because I
Yep.
just like didn't have to. And it was really weird for me to
I
not be
bet.
doing like a 10, 12 hour day like off the bat and not
Mhm.
coming in on weekends and not constantly like getting personal messages from people on the floor, like checking in on things. Um, and so there's an adjustment period. And I recognize that that's like unhinged, right? Like most people don't do that. Most people have reasonable boundaries where they're like, they pay me for 40 hours, they get 40 hours, unless there's some sort of compensation or like time pivot later. I'm not giving them more. I'm not giving them less.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll give them less. But I wasn't gamifying of like I didn't really care about the money. I cared about or the compensation. I cared about what I was getting done and what I was putting my
Yeah.
name on. So that's what I was spending my time on. But truth be told, when I had more time to settle and to think, I got really itchy scratchy and I got really like I picked at myself. I picked at myself a bit, like those
Yeah.
questions of doubt and like, did I make the right choice? And I left behind a really cool community and I left behind a really, really great opportunity. And I ultimately got a therapist. And
Everybody should have a therapist.
everyone deserves a therapist if you can afford in time and money. it is hard though, because as I'm sure you've experienced, finding the right therapist is kind of like
Ugh,
dating, and it can be exhausting.
yeah.
I thankfully really liked my therapist right off the bat. She kind of reminded me of my mom, but she wasn't my mom, so I could talk about my mom with her, you know? And like I didn't have as much like family like trauma to dump right away. It was more of like talking through what I was experiencing, and she described it as it's like you have to have a diagnosis, otherwise you can't bill insurance because America sucks. But I think it was like adjustment disorder or transitional something or other, which is a
Okay.
really known thing. It's like
Hmm.
you just made a major life change, which is probably the right change,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that it wasn't super disruptive.
Right.
Um, and even just moving your entire life and the costs associated with it and the settling in again, like I had more people in Oregon than I did in Nevada, but it I was like re-infiltrating life, and like these are people that I love but didn't see a lot over the last years, and
Yep.
they're like, oh yeah, where were you? You know. And so, it really, really helped me to end up talking to somebody and to admit that I wasn't okay, because on paper, everything was fine. Like my resume was in check. I made a career movement that made sense. I was closer to home. I was closer to family. I was with my partner. I was finally living with my partner who had been
Mhm.
distanced with for the majority of our relationship. And like all the things were fine, 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 fine. And but I wasn't. And I had to
Yeah.
admit that to myself. And um even if you're holding it together and you seem fine, you just weren't. And it was really comforting to know that it's not just me. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
high achievers, high functioners, well-adjusted people who still just have a fucking meltdown because you changed your life pretty dramatically.
Right.
Um, and you didn't allow yourself the time or space to fully process that. So that's a lot.
Yeah. No, and I think we also have to acknowledge that, we've talked before about a little bit of the culty feel of the startups that we've been in from time
Mhm.
to time, and it does take more of your emotions than it should, and you do feel this sense of, like, codependency with it. So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure that was part of it as well.
Yeah. Oh, a huge part of it was that I just left a place where I had been there early enough and long enough on their time scale that I knew stuff. People came to me to get something done because they knew that I could
Yeah.
help them. New people joining the company, I would let them know. I was like, hi, this is who I am. I might not be able to do something for you, but if you need something, like I can get you in contact with the right person, because I knew the people at the company. Like I was an asset. And then
Yep.
I moved to this company where I didn't speak the language on the product. I didn't
Yeah.
know their lingo. I didn't know how the product worked. I didn't know the names of the people on the floor. I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything. And I went from being like, at least in my own mind's eye, like this badass that people could talk to
Yep.
someone who's like floundering and like reading engineering memos to understand what the company has already tried before. And like I had such a lack of history. I had such a
Yeah.
lack of understanding. And that's also very overwhelming to go from like useful to useless, at least in your own internal monologue, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah, that was a huge portion of it, which thank you for reminding me. That was probably like the majority of it. I was like, oh my God, yeah, I feel useless here. And that's like really shitty.
Yeah, so now you're piling on. I just moved to a new city. I have a new place. I don't have any friends. I have to figure out what my grocery store is, and you feel useless at work, or like you
Mhm.
have no idea what you're doing. And then, overthinkers like us are like, "Oh my god, am I sucking at this?" And that just adds to it. And I'll
How am I
just
going to
say,
be
like,
excellent if I
yeah,
don't even know what to call this thing? Like,
starting a new job is like my least favorite time.
yeah.
Uh, every single time when I get to a new job, because it is like I don't know anything. And I had one company ask me to, after my 30 days make recommendations on what they could do to improve things. And that made me so uncomfortable because, yes, of course, I saw things and I'm like, why do you do it this way? And I think you should do it a different way. But you're also like, I don't want to piss these people off. I don't know what they've tried or why they're in this situation. I don't think 30 days is long enough to understand the culture and the priorities and the roadmap and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
Oh, so I also wanted to just say one more thing before we wrap up is I'm just glad that you went through that transition before I did and you had a kick-ass therapist because you were able to help me on my next transition when I was coming off of some of that and dealing with exactly the same thing. So yeah, Justine and I used to talk a lot, and I thank you so much for all of your guidance and helping me get comfortable with not working 12-hour days and get comfortable with not having to be on call because my company wasn't doing 24/7 or barely 8 hours kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, it was super relieving as well to be able to maintain a connection with you and get confirmation that I left at a good time for me, and hearing like your continued experience, although extremely rewarding in ways, was also taking a lot. And so when you were no longer in that space, I was just happy for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm pretty well cooled off, but like you're still in a cool down period.
Yes.
And that's totally fine. It just happens at its own pace. Plus you moved again.
Yep.
Was, not only huge job change and like I don't know, identity change, because you're like, I am this person at this place and all these people know me. And then
Yep.
you go to not having that anymore. Like I literally don't have that title in that place with those people any longer.
Yep.
Who am I?
Yep. Different industry, different everything.
Yeah, it's just a lot. So
And I can honestly say I'm starting to get myself back from pre that position where I'm like enjoying things that I used to enjoy, feeling a lot more happy-go-lucky and less in my head. And I think that I am slowly healing, and I've really appreciated all your support through that. All right.
Yeah. You're a kick-ass lady, so
Thank you. You're amazing. All right. Well,
yeah.
Thank you for being here with us. And, moving jobs, moving cities, all of that's not easy, but keep at it. Get yourself out there.
And if you're career focused, there's a lot of ways to find people who support you in that. And it's a very rewarding way of going about it, but it does have its challenges. So keep at it.